So we have another tier list for you all today, and this one is going to be remakes. Should or shouldn't there be remakes of these films? And some hot takes of remakes of some films that have been remade, but should they be remade again? Actually, I should have added Psycho to this, but we'll go with what we have. So, this is a mixture of films that have not been remade to some that have, but mostly have not had a remake. So, right off the bat, we got Shawshank Redemption. Hell no. That should be the only movie in its existence there. There is no need to remake this film. It was a fantastic film, well acted, well written. Um, there is no need to remake this film at all. Uh, it stands on its own. It is an absolute awesome classic of a film. And one of the very few Stephen King stories that doesn't have supernatural elements or monsters in it. There is a little bit of magic, I'll say, but it's not to the extent of like It or anything like that. It's not a horror movie. It's a strict drama. You could even throw in a bit of comedy in there at moments, but very, very good film. Should not be remade. Should not be touched. So, um, Top Secret, the spoof, should not be remade. Not even attempted to be remade. Spoof films of old should be left alone. It's cool to come back with spoof movies. I'm all for it. If they want to bring those back, make them actually funny instead of stupid, I'm all for it. But the Zucker brothers films of old like Airplane, Top Secret, Naked Gun, although Naked Gun was remade, um, shouldn't be touched. But the remake of Naked Gun actually was humorous, luckily. Goonies should not be remade. They can continue to have a sequel with it, not necessarily with any of the old actors, but have another adventure film of sorts of sort of the same themes, but not remake the original. The Godfather, no. I have not watched all the Godfathers all the way through, but it is a series that should not be touched by the remakes. Not even close. The Shadow. So The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, I'm putting in borderline. So what borderline means is it's a film that I'm kind of like, yeah, it could use one, but it could. I would be fine if they didn't, because The Shadow with Alec Baldwin is cheesy. It's a guilty pleasure movie of mine. It is definitely not perfect, but I enjoy the hell out of it. I like the concept. I like Alec Baldwin's portrayal in there. I like how the villain is Genghis Khan. You have Ian McKellen, if I'm pronouncing that right, Gandalf actor in this movie. He plays a scientist. You have Tim Curry in there as a villainous minion. So there's some information for you. I always liked this film, but if they did a remake of it in a proper way, with good writing and good effects and all that stuff, I'd be okay with it. But otherwise, do not touch that guilty pleasure film. It's fine the way it is. Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman should not be remade. Classic mystery film. Even though I've watched it a bunch of times and know pretty much this solution to the what's going on and whatnot. But it is a film that should not be remade. David Fincher's best film, in my opinion, and they could make a movie that follows kind of the suspense and stuff that was in Seven, but not be remade. Not a chance. Stand By Me. I'm going to put that in maybe not. I don't believe it requires a remake at all. It's a fantastic film, Stephen King film, uh, story, I should say. The book, short story was called The Body, from what I recall. But um, if they did, I would want good child actors who can act, believability. It would be a low budget film because there's not a lot of in the honestly in the whole thing. There's not a lot of effects that need to be added. Um, they would have to get the time period of this taking place in it. Don't modernize it, but putting it in today's uh, uh, society and all that. Do it at the time period that the book is at. So I know that if they remade Stand By Me, they would modernize it and put it in our time period. No, no. So that's a maybe not. A strong maybe not. The Thing, no. Do not touch The Thing. Do not remake The Thing. I don't care if you do a sequel of The Thing. It would be stupid if they did because they already had a prequel and I think they don't need any more. But The Thing, the original 1982 John Carpenter classic, not to be remade, not even touched. I wouldn't even look at it if they remade it. They would mess it up. It would be all CG. They wouldn't even, they'd have to impress the hell out of me for the remake to be anywhere close to the original. But this movie should not be remade. Hard hands down on that one. Monster Squad, I'm going to put in must be corrected. So these are films that, yeah, they could use a remake. The original Monster Squad, I love, and I will watch that all the time. But I think that it's one of those films that if they did a remake of it, yeah, cool. I think there are elements in there that could be revamped up a bit, uh, but keeping the same theme, same character, same story about the kids that have a clubhouse, a monster clubhouse, and monsters come to the town and they're trying to convince everybody that they're there and all that. I think would work. I think it needs either a sequel or if they're doing a remake of it to at least have good child actors in it and the monsters makeup and stuff could be a little better. Casino, no. No remake for Casino, the Robert De Niro film, the Joe Pesci one. No. It's on its own. It's a good, solid film. I'm not a huge gangster film type person, but it was a good, good film. Sharon Stone, one of her best films she ever did. Taxi Driver, borderline. Robert De Niro's performance is outstanding in that. It's a classic film for sure, but it could be. I wouldn't be opposed to an updated version of it. Just trying to keep the again the same sort of theme and stuff with it. I'll leave it at that. The House horror movie. So they had House 1, House 2. I think they had 4 House movies. I think. I wouldn't be opposed if they remade House. I mean, it was a goofy monster sort of movie. The actor that played Norm in the Cheers TV show is in that film. Plays the neighbor, from what I recall. It also stars the actor from Greatest American Hero TV show as the owner of this house that has a strangeness to it. It's got the actor that played Bull from Night Court fame. He's the villain in it. It was different. It was kind of I would kind of spoofy, kind of goofy kind of deal. Weird. So, but I wouldn't be opposed to a remake of it, of the original. I know they did a couple of sequels, obviously, but we'll leave it at that. Here's the first hot take: Halloween, borderline. So they have done a remake of Halloween. They have done a follow-up trilogy of Halloween, the original. Now, the reason it's on this list is because I do think that they need to go back to the well after the last two movies sucked, in my opinion. That they stripped Michael of what he was originally designed for, that shadow, that shape in the darkness, and you don't see him until it's too late, kind of deal. The stalking, the not a like a gore fest, a thinking methodical villain of a slasher guy. They need to get that back. They bring that back to this series and rejuvenate it. Now, I have read that they are looking to do that, rejuvenate the series. I'm fine with that because I like I really like Halloween 1, the original Halloween 1, the original Halloween 2, and Halloween 4, but the rest of them I could leave on the wayside. But I do think that it's time that they bring the suspense and thriller feel of Halloween back that the original brought. That's why it's a hot take. I do think that it's a series that needs to come back, and I also think that if they do a good job, they can. Fight Club, no, it doesn't. It's a movie that doesn't need to be remade. As odd of a movie as it is, I found it doesn't need to be remade. It was well acted. It was very different of a film. Um, what more can you say about it? It's a memorable film, classic. I guess you could throw that in there. A lot of people liked it. But it's certainly a different kind of film. Blazing Saddles, maybe not. They can't obviously do a lot of the content that the original Blazing Saddles had in it because it's not politically correct. It is a classic film, and if they never made a remake of that, I'd be fine with it. It is an awesome classic Mel Brooks comedy that is awesome and watchable every time. But if somehow they were thinking of doing a remake, they could have pokes at certain society elements within it and change it up that way with kooky characters and whatnot in a Western setting. So, kind of like Seth MacFarlane's 100 Ways to Die in the West, I think it was called. But, so it's a maybe not. Like a strong don't remake there because you're going to mess it up. But if they did, like there could be some interest in what the comedy will be. Ooh, does boot. Borderline. The original German Does Boot was a phenomenal film, and there's multiple run times of it. There's 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, and I think there was an 8 hour version. I never read the book that it was based on, but essentially, for those that don't know about it, it was about this crew aboard this submarine during World War II that waited for kind of like They were down there, they were doing their thing, and not too much happened except for the occasional you know having to watch out for the Americans there. It was the German side of the war, their viewpoint, which was really interesting. I don't want to go further than that because of spoilers, but if they remade this, I could see some parts of the film tighten up a little bit. It would have to be kind of a 3-4 hour movie, I would guess, because of the lengthy uh, story. But kind of shrink it down to that level. Don't have an 8 hour epic because that's just too far. You could no. You could shrink it down to 2.5 hours, 3 hours, telling the tale of this crew in the submarine, keeping the awesome acting, like hire the right people. Obviously, it could be a low budget film because while there's points in it of suspense and stuff like that, I could see it being one of those films that you could make a really good dramatic war film, but less budget. But I do think that's why it's a borderline for me because I think that it's a possibility to make a good one, really good, and make obviously you're going from the German version to a more American version, but you have to be stick with that. Hire German actors speaking in German, okay, no dub because the dub sucks, and stick with that storyline to the best of the ability of the crew doing it. That's all I'll say. There's another hot take: Friday the 13th, the original. Borderline. Now, there was the 2009 kind of reboot film. I don't count that as a remake, to be honest. They had elements of the mother briefly in it, but it wasn't an official remake, in my opinion. There was the potato sack Jason, and then he got his mask. If they truly are gonna would remake the original Friday 13th Part 1, fine. I think there could be some fun there. But you would need to have an actress that plays Pamela Voorhees as creepy as Betsy Palmer portrayed her in the reveal. Everybody by this point knows the first Friday 13th film was not Jason, it was Jason's mother. And I think out of all the Friday 13ths, I think that the first one being remade would make the most sense to do. There is that TV show coming out this year, which I have no, honestly, I have no real interest in seeing because honestly, Friday 13th doesn't have a plot like worthy of a TV show. Bates Motel had more of a plot to for Norman Bates' mother and kind of all the events that happened before Norman Bates takes over the hotel. Cool. But here, aside from Jason's father kind of like figuring finally seeing him in live TV show or movie or whatever, other than that, there really isn't a good story here. You have a mother goes crazy because her son gets apparently drowned and she goes bananas. It doesn't really have, in my opinion, a strong premise for a show, but for a film where they can hide the way they did it in the original, where they hide the killer until they have to reveal it. I like that idea, and the way you reveal it, and the way you go about it. Obviously, for a remake, it's going to have your gore. Probably at this point, people would throw in the Terrifier level of gore, which is what they love to do. But it's not really about that. It's about the suspense. You could shoot it in a way where it's more of a suspense. You could have the slasher kills, sure, but don't overdo it. Things like that. I do think that Friday 13th is also on the borderline of like, do you really want to resurrect a series that I love Jason. Don't get me wrong. Jason's cool. I think, having him come out in the game, cool. Bring that on. But continuing its series isn't as strong as Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, in my opinion, especially nowadays. Sure, you have the camp, and then you have the killer guy, and it gets repetitive real fast. It's not honestly a series that I would want to rejuvenate, to be honest. I think Jason Voorhees had his time, and I would rather have sequels, silly sequels, like guilty pleasure sequels, than have remakes, to be honest. But I'm saying if they did a remake of the first film, if done right, cool. No Die Hard sequel. No one recasted John McClane. No. You could continue the series with the son or the daughter, I don't care. Or you could have I don't know, offspring of John McClane or some crap, but no remaking Die Hard. It does not need a remake. It was a classic, still is a classic. Any of those first four Die Hard movies, no, they don't need to be touched. Bruce Willis will live on as John McClane, and he will be the only John McClane. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Now, this is another hot take because I know that it was a classic film. I do think with the technology nowadays that they could remake it to a good remake of the original 2001 film. Uh, Obviously, you need like strong actors. You need to have like very good effects because it's going to be in space. Um, Obviously, they're going to use computer graphics there, but hopefully they use a bit of practical and space effects to design a very good remake because it is possible with our technology today to bring a very good remake of a classic film in keeping with the themes and the idea of that film, which is why it's revered as a classic. If they don't touch it, they don't touch it, but I'm saying that they could with today's practical effects, which are obviously a lot better than then, and stuff like that. I do think that like it's just one of those films that I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of. Okay, Hellraiser, another hot take here. Borderline. So they had like kind of a reboot Hellraiser a couple years ago, which was good. Actually, I liked it better than the old ones. And the old ones have their place, especially the original Hellraiser film. I've never been a big Pinhead fan. Like the design, the idea, but think about this: with all the proper prosthetics and stuff like that, the monsters in the world that Pinhead comes from and whatnot, they could make a really crazy remake of Hellraiser. That's all I'm gonna say. E.T. I am putting in must be corrected. I hated the original one. Yes, I said it. This is a hot take. I hated the original film. I did not like um the creature or alien, I should say. It just looks too outdated now. It looks weird. It's fine. I love Drew Barrymore's performance there, and Elliot, and some cute bits, and there's some scary bits too when um the government comes into play. But they have to redesign this film, I think, for and they have prosthetics and practical effects that do a really awesome job for a remake of ET. And if they did that, I probably would like it a lot more. The premise of ET, even as a kid, I never really liked. But as I'm older and an adult, I do appreciate the original. It's not my favorite. It's not. It's but the design of the alien is outdated for me, and I just cannot get by that with the original. So that's a movie that I would like to see be remade for me to kind of appreciate the old one more, but also at the same time appreciate the story and everything more. That's just my opinion. Back to the Future does not need to be remade, nor do any of the sequels. Do not touch it. Michael J. Fox will live on as Marty McFly. Christopher Lloyd as the Doctor will live on in that role. It is a great series. It does not need to be touched. It doesn't need to be remade. It doesn't need to be rebooted. Nothing. Not at all. Pulp Fiction does not need to be touched. It's Quentin Tarantino's best movie, in my opinion. It is very kind of different. It's violent and everything, but the characters are fantastic. The way it's told in different kind of perspectives and different order of events that happen, which is great. No other film has come close to this one, and Pulp Fiction is one of those films that you can't remake it. There's no way. It needs to stay alone as it is. It's the only one that needs to be there, and that's it. Goodfellas, I'm putting in maybe not. Obviously, it's a classic gangster film. Again, I'm not a huge fan of gangster films, but I have to admit that Goodfellas was a decent film. Great acting, all that kind of stuff. If by chance they remade that again, it'll have to be a strong casting, strong writing, keep the same themes and everything. Um, but I would leave it alone otherwise. Apocalypse Now does not need a remake. That film is strong with its themes and the great actors that were in there, like quite a bit of them. No, it doesn't need to be touched. It does not need to be touched. Princess Bride. The Princess Bride should not be touched either. And you know that they probably want to remake this and modernize the hell out of it and ruin it. You know they want to. But it does not need to be remade. No touch. No touchy. Nightmare on Elm Street. This is a hot take. So they did have a remake of Nightmare on Elm Street with that actor from Watchmen. I always forget his damn name. Earl something, and it sucked. It was terrible. The actors were terrible. The makeup was terrible. Everything about it was bad. And the biggest issue with the remake was they actually explain the origins of Freddy, which you don't do. We all know his origins and what he's about. Okay, we don't need it to be shown to us live. Leave the mystery of Freddy out. If they remade Nightmare on Elm Street properly, one, they'd have to get a really good actor to play Freddy, one that could pull it off. There are some actors that are kind of aged now, but could pull off the role itself in that sinister Freddy like tone with the some of the humor. But the thing is, with the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'll even throw in part two here, Freddy is not a comedian. He is a killer. He is demonic. He is sinister. He is like an evil cartoon villain of evilness. Okay? The first two films, even though the second film was very different, but it had moments. Freddy portrayed in both of those by Robert Englund was the best, especially in part one. You saw a silhouette of him. You didn't really see him in the light. It was shot well. For them to do a proper remake and rejuvenate Freddy Krueger's, Robert Englund's obviously retired, and he'll be the best Freddy Krueger ever made. But I think that if they hire the proper actor to portray him, do the makeup properly, where it looks like he's been burned and creepy, and the way that he moves and all that, particularly, then you hire a good cast of teenagers that don't suck, that actually you care about, then yes, go for it. Because I think with some of the technology today, they could go back to Wes Craven's vision of dark and like just those moments within the film there that can be wow factors. So, Lawrence of Arabia does not need to be remade. Why? Why ruin an epic film like that with a remake? Peter O'Toole carried that movie along with everyone else in that movie that was acting in it, and it was a very long but very interesting film. And I finally got to watch its entirety last year. No, the year before. I think it was the year before. Fantastic film, does not need to be touched. There's a hot take for you. Gone with the Wind. Sure, remake it. Do it. Hire uh, a new Scarlet. Uh, tell that tale. They could shrink it down a little bit into like 2.5, 3 hours. I think it was like 4 hours entirely. I my feelings towards the original film is like, yeah, sure, it's a classic, but Scarlet sucked as a character. Like the actress did well, like not blaming the actress, but you're meant to not really care for Scarlet and what she's doing throughout the film. I mean, that's the impression I got. But if they remade this and now they would have to keep it in the setting it's in, no modernizing it into our present time, which is not would ruin the whole entire remake. Hire good actors, obviously. They could like update some of the kind of like background graphics and everything because some of the things and the original were kind of like kooky, whatever. But they could do it for a low budget. Anyway, that's where I stand on that. The Game with Michael Douglas doesn't need to be remade. Another good David Fincher film that is fantastic. I've watched it a bunch of times, even though we kind of figure out what's going on. Um, Great performances all around. Very suspenseful thriller set up and gets you. If you've never seen it, it gets you in the ending. The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, can be remade. It's just for the original, sure, it's a classic, but they could do a lot better job with the bird effects and everything. Probably they'll go with the CG for most of it, but they could do practical effects. On top of that, they could actually make really interesting. They could use kind of real birds in a sense. There, I don't. I heard that there were real birds in the original that were used, so it is possible and updated. I think this film, to me, I think it could use an update for itself. Much like I talked about Monster Squad, it could use some updating there. So, Pirates of the Caribbean doesn't need to be remade, but Disney's remaking it anyway because they remake everything they have. Uh, Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow ran that series. Man, he was like the main point of that series. Barbosa. that character this has some really cool characters in it. Even the not so good Pirates of the Caribbean sequels were still worth watching those type of characters because like the whole entire series was an adventure, fun entertainment. I had my favorites. I like the first one, I like the second one, and I like the fourth one with the Fountain of Youth. The others, but doesn't need to be remade. But Disney's going to remake it anyway, so I'm just sticking with the originals. Thanks. Hmm. It's a Wonderful Life. I'm going to put it borderline. I don't like the movie. I get the whole idea behind it, but if they remade it, they could do it as a Hallmark movie, to be honest. Wouldn't it take a lot of money to do? Showing a person's life and what it would be like if they weren't there. Now, there have been some other movies that have taken that premise in a kind of different direction, and I like those a lot better. Like, there was one with John Belushi. What the hell was it called? It's an old one, too. Kind of a similar premise, except he's not willing to throw himself over a bridge to get the point across. There was one with Nicolas Cage, the Family Man, that kind of took that idea there and kind of made it a little different. But it's a Wonderful Life. Sure, you could remake that. Um, that's all I'll say about that. Uh, 12 Angry Men, I'll put borderline. Very good film, very slow pace, but very good, strong, dramatic film. Very good actors in it for the black and white. But yeah, I could see this being remade. You could modernize it, of course. Probably be a case in and they'll modernize it up. But you gotta have strong actors in it. You gotta because it pretty much takes place in a one room where they're arguing and so on and so on, and that's the whole point of the film about a court case. And finally, we have Jaws. Don't touch it. I'm not counting the sequels. You can have those, but the original, no, it doesn't need to be remade. You know that they're gonna put a CGI shark in, and even if they have a practical shark in there, like if they remade Jaws, I would want to see them actually give a shit about it. You know what I mean? Practical effects, good actors, good suspense, good thrills. You're gonna have obviously the shark attack moments in it. Sure, they could update those, whatever. But the don't make them like over gory, whatever. Because the original Jaws, it had moments where there was gore in it, but it didn't amp it up to like Terrifier levels or some garbage like that. It just gets the point across, like the shark attack happens, and then you move on to the next scene. But Jaws does not need to be remade at all. It's the best shark movie that's ever been put it on the big screen, and it will continue to be the best shark movie that's ever been put on the good screen. There have been entertaining shark movies, but as from the book which I read to the big screen, it is a shark movie that stands the test of time. It's a classic for a reason, and we'll leave it at that. So not all the movies are on here, but these are ones that I picked out here just from the lot that wanted to talk about and their remake potential and so on. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments, what films you think need a remake. I'd be very interested to know. You know, an old film that you would love to see modernized, if you want to call it that. remade, whatever. Maybe even like if there's a trilogy that you would like to see kind of upped by today's standards, or are there any remakes or are there any original movies that you just would not like to be touched at all? Maybe there's some I forgot. Okay, well, we'll see you in the next video and give a like, thumbs up, and all that fun stuff.